Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining IFAD's Governing Council press conference. I'm Joanne Leviton from IFAD, and I'll be your moderator today. For those of you in the virtual conference room, you can also follow in French, Spanish, or Arabic. Please select the appropriate language at the bottom of your screen. So COVID-19 has shined a spotlight on the vulnerability of our global food systems, particularly for the world's rural people who grow much of our food, but too often go hungry. Urgent change is needed, and that's what we're going to discuss here today. So let me introduce our speakers. Gilbert Houngbo is IFAD's president, and yesterday was reappointed for a second four-year term. Congratulations to you. Dr. Agnes Kalibata is the special envoy for the 2021 Food Systems Summit. Thank you for being here. And Joseph Matenga Newton is an entrepreneur from rural Kenya who co-founded a youth-run banana flour processing company. Thank you also for joining us, Joseph. Our speakers will each deliver a short statement. I'll then open the floor where you can raise your virtual hand to ask questions. At any time, you can also send me your written questions in English through the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Please include the name of your outlet. Your microphones will remain muted until I call on you to speak. Now, President Houngbo, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Joanna. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, or good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. I am so pleased to be here today with Dr. Agnes Kalibata, not only the UN Special Envoy for the Food System, but also the President of AGRA, the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, as well as Joseph Matenga Newton, the rural producer in Kenya. I'm also equally pleased that IFAD is taking a leading role in the UN Food System Summit. This re-evaluation of our food systems has never been more critical, because we know that millions of rural women and men and also are also one shock away from hunger or poverty crisis. And that shock could be the impact of a global pandemic, a natural disaster, a flood, drought, or a simply price hike. So rural people make up, we know that, nearly half the world's population, and most contribute in some way to the food that we eat. Yet they remain vulnerable to shocks because they have so few safety nets and have to struggle to earn a decent living and afford healthy diet for themselves and their families. So I do believe it is time for a radical transformation of our food systems, and rural people should be at the center of any change. If we want to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal by 2030, we need fundamentally rethink now how we grow, how we process, how we sell, how we consume, so that it is more equitable and sustainable. So let me touch maybe a very few specific points. The first is the fact that the rural people cannot grow their food or food-related business or become more resilient to shock without access to finance. So the financial access for me is crucial. But formal access to financial services only reach 10% of rural communities. So we can change this by harnessing digital technology and the near universal presence of cell phone in rural area to bring in new financial service providers and create innovative financial products designed to cater specifically to the need of rural people. Second, we need to tap the immense income-generating potential that exists in food processing, transport, and marketing in rural area. And these services should remain there in rural area because with the right investment, millions of rural youth who may otherwise migrate could find jobs and start their own businesses. My third point is the importance to produce food without destroying Earth ecosystems. Our current rate of biodiversity loss, freshwater depletion, and environmental degradation is clearly unsustainable. Our survival as human depends on this. So let me stop here for a moment. Thank you so much.
Thank you, President Houngbo. And I'll now hand the floor to Dr. Agnes Kalibata. I know that you're having some internet issues, so we understand if you need to turn your camera off. You have the floor.
Thank you, Joanna, and congratulations, President Houngbo, for your re-election. We really needed you back to continue this fight against hunger. So what I'm going to do is I'll turn off my camera because my internet is weak, but definitely I'm here and I'm going to be speaking to you. The Food System Summit was launched by the Secretary General really for two reasons. One, recognizing that we were off track on achieving our shared agenda, the SDGs. And two, that whatever we are doing, we're impacting our environment. President Houngbo has already mentioned some of the areas in which we are impacting our environment. So our key priority today is to engage everybody, individuals, farmers, indigenous people, using the opportunity that IFAD presents working with all these people to ensure that we help them understand their place and role in the world, but also ensure that they have a clear vision of their contribution to a healthier food system and a clear vision of how they help us safeguard our planet for the future for the future and for our children. We need also to use the opportunity for them to put their voice forward stronger, so that public institutions, governments, private sector, civil society, and others understand their role in ensuring that we have more inclusive and equitable and resilient food systems. So today we will be launching the independent dialogue step-by-step guide and promotion toolkit, just to ensure that we are giving these communities and people around the world, all of us, an opportunity to use these dialogues, these toolkits to dialogue and be able to put forward ideas, recognizing fully well that food systems are local and solutions to food systems are very local, and the leadership of food systems is local. So we are looking up to farmers, indigenous people, and people that are acting locally to provide solutions from where they are at, understanding fully well that they understand challenges they face, and they're already solving these challenges, and we can build on some of the solutions that they are seeing in their midst to build, to build a better planet and to ensure that we do well by our planet. We also have an opportunity to listen to the opportunities that they are seeing that can help us feed ourselves better and feed our world. And feed our world is extremely important because we need to recognize that we can't feed people and forget that we need to nourish and feed the very planet that we are using to feed people. So I see, and I really want to encourage people that the independent dialogue is an opportunity for us to have courageous conversations around what needs to change and who should be on the table when we are changing things and who we want to see on the table so that we can be able to change things. And I thank you all, and I look forward to any questions you might have. But here my point is really to make sure that I call upon you to help us take the dialogue conversation far and near, to help people understand that this is an opportunity for them to engage in the future of our food systems. So I hope that this conversation goes far and near, and I hope that the toolkits that we are launching today provide an opportunity for anybody anywhere to engage. Thank you, and I'll turn back over to you, Joanna.
Thank you, Dr. Kalibata, and that exciting announcement about the independent dialogues. President Houngbo, I'd just like to briefly give you the floor again just to respond to this announcement and have IFAD's reaction to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Clearly, what Dr. Kalibata is saying, and which I'm 100% on support of, is again a reflection of the direction that we need to take. We cannot let the system continue to be what it is today. That's the bottom line. That's why it's quite important that we move as fast as we can to, by the time we get closer to the September summit itself, starting with the pre-summit in Italy, maybe around July, I think. But it's very clear that we at IFAD, we are very pleased to be part of this announcement. This is what I want to be very clear on that. We believe that we do have what it takes to contribute to this discussion and on how to transform our food system, the rural people, how to grow, etc. So I want to be very, very clear on that we need to seize this opportunity and to urge rural people to take advantage of this, so to feed into important discussion with their own ideas. You know very well that, for example, we have been working with the indigenous people in the last 10 years with a formal forum set up. And one of the points that for me is very, very critical. No development strategy will be successful if it's not coming from within, if it's not a bottom-up approach. And to have the voice and to be able to listen, have the voice of the rural producer, for me, is going to be key. So I'm fully on board. Over.
Thank you. Joseph, I mean, you're a rural producer yourself, and you're exactly the person that we're encouraging to give the opinion in this independent dialogues. So what do you see as the main challenges in the food system, and what are some of your solutions?
Thank you so much, Joanne. Maybe as I answer your question, I will give you a slight background of myself. I come from rural Kenya, and I grew up with my parents who are agricultural farmers. And where I come from, the soil is very fertile, but we still had issues with getting enough income to cater for our family. And yet we do have a banana plantation, we do have a coffee plantation. So as I grew up, it was a problem seeing all this happening, and the hands of my parents and the community were tied because we couldn't get enough to sustain ourselves. And yet we have the food, we have the fertile soils. So when we began our process of making banana flour and adding value to green bananas, that's when IFAD came, and we were supported with equipment. We were given money, we bought equipment and everything to be able to produce our first banana flour, which now helped our parents and the community at large in giving them good prices for the bananas, because the prevailing circumstance was that the middlemen were giving farmers poor prices, and then there was a lot of market inaccessibility, which still is a huge problem in the rural areas right now. So we were able to get a market for the bananas from our community. Then we also now in the process of taking our products into the market, which is not an easy process. So I would say the plight of rural farmers stems from lack of agricultural input, lack of seeds, lack of enough technological knowledge, lack of training, because the rural people, I'll tell you, are in a better position to feed the world because the soil is there, is fertile, we have the land, we have everything, but we don't have the market. We don't have the farm inputs, and we cannot be able to reach the market as it were without a lot of effort being put towards that, a lot of effort being put towards value addition to traditional foods. And you'll bear with me, a lot of people are now taking staple food, traditional foods. I know that is what we have been doing to add value, and adding value to those foods is becoming a problem. And so the rural people just need a lot of help in accessing inputs, accessing the market, and training more so technologically how to access the market and how to produce and process the foods. John.
Thanks, Joseph. Those are really valuable insights to be sharing. I'm now going to open up the floor to questions. Just a reminder to use your virtual hand if you want to ask a question in person, or enter a question in the Q&A. Please send it in English. Please keep your questions brief and start with your name and outlet, and I'll try my best to get to everyone. I already have a few questions that have come on the text, on the chat, Q&A. So let me just start there. President Houngbo, the first question is for you from Samir from Egypt Today. What are the most important lessons IFAD has learned from the coronavirus pandemic?
Thank you so much. In terms of lesson learned from the pandemic, Samir, there's a lot. First of all, it was quite overwhelming for us to get requests from about 70 countries asking us to repurpose our ongoing project so we can use the existing resources on the ground to address the socio-economic impact. So the need for, in case of crisis, to be ready, to be agile, so to change the ongoing activity, so to quickly respond to the need of the country is quite crucial, which is one. Secondly, I will point out the criticality of the domestic production. When the whole transport and logistic came to a standstill last year, and all of a sudden, if you take, for example, sub-Saharan Africa, where the total food import on annual basis is 35 billion. So you can imagine when the whole transport logistics comes to stand still, the impact that it has had. So it's important for us to keep supporting the domestic production and therefore continue investing in the productivity so that production can be competitive in comparison to the import. The third lesson is the digital agriculture on that. So the more we will be able to digitalize the rural for our rural community on all our production, the better it will be. The fourth point that I will mention is still, though we know it, the precarity or the lack of very sustained or strong resilience is also something that came up to all of us. We have a lot of our community that already have started selling their meager asset so to be able to survive. So that fragility, resilient, in my mind, came up quicker than I would have thought. I know the challenge was there, but it was even quicker than one would have thought. So let me limit that to those 4 lessons learned.
Thank you. The next question we've received in the Q&A is from Margaret Lopez from Hispano Post Media Group to Dr. Kalibata. From your perspective as an entomologist, do you think that insect meals produced for human consumption can be a viable option for improving diets in the post-COVID-19 world?
Thank you again. I apologize, my internet has been extremely weak. You can hear me? Very good. So I think the whole idea of launching the independent dialogue will probably provide part of the answer to that question, because like I said earlier, we do recognize that food systems are very local. There are people who are already using insects as diets. So it would not be an innovation, a huge innovation, to have insects as a base of diets. And I think once we are able to overcome some of the cultural challenges that exist when it comes to food and how people perceive food, definitely the communities that are already benefiting from insects as food have a lot to offer to us, but also science has a lot to offer. We already know that insects have huge amounts of protein and good fat. So there's a good basis there. But the whole idea of them having them as mainstream food past COVID-19 is going to depend on, number one, the kind of solutions that get presented with regards to the whole packaging, the principle of packaging and how it is going to be presented, number one. Number two, the principle of culture and how people view use of alternative sources of food like insects when it comes to using that as a source of food. Definitely there are opportunities with regards to how quickly insects get produced and how volumes get turned over. So those are opportunities we can look at. But again, it's all going to be grounded in the type of solution that get put forward, but also in the technological advances we put into packaging them and making them acceptable sources of food versus our culture. So there are ideas there, but it's going to depend on how people view this. I think the biggest opportunity, like I said at the beginning, is that we allow independent dialogues to put some of these things forward as solutions that when they do come from people themselves, we also have a lot to learn from the farming communities and the indigenous communities that are already using these as sources of food, and really be open our minds to listening to them and learning from them as well.
Thank you. I'll now take a question from the floor. Mushfiq Wadood, you'll get a signal to unmute your mic now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Congratulations for re-election. First, my question to you that you talked about migrant workers, and we saw that during COVID-19, many migrant workers are affected. I'm mainly a freelance reporter from Bangladesh. We have many migrant workers in Middle East or other countries, and they're mainly from rural areas. They are EOs. So people who are these migrant workers who are returning back to Bangladesh, do you have any plan for their employment or for their giving some support for their employment so that they can start something on their own? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mushfiq. And it's important for you to keep in mind that our intervention, we do not go just by ourselves. It's really a coordinated approach with the national authorities. And you know, IFAD activity in Bangladesh are one of the most vibrant that we have in the world. So the returnee, the issue of the returnee has to be also dealt with how the priority are established with the government. That being said, even before and after COVID, we do have activities that are supporting the returnee for migration, particularly those that find themselves in a dire hard situation or in between countries and etc. That we encourage them that when they return, we have a minimum finance accessible for them to start their own activities. Recent activity in Bangladesh, though, I must admit, and based on the accordance with the government has preferred, we focus on dealing with water and agriculture issue, because you know very well the water and the flood issue in Bangladesh. Over.
Thank you. We've received also a question from Andanaya Usha from Development Today, also for you, President Houngbo. You emphasized the importance of access to finance for rural farmers. Can you please comment on the outcomes so far of the IFAD replenishment and whether it looks like IFAD will reach its funding target? Thank you.
Thank you so much. First of all, I could not insist enough on the rural finance, and Dr. Kalibata, she also an advocate for that through her second hat on the Agra side on that. As regard to our ongoing replenishment, we have the pledges 2 days ago on Tuesday, and our target is 1.5 billion. So we are at 1.1. So we are kind of between 70 and 72% of the target. Just when I compare that to 3 years ago, we were also at 71% in February 2018. So you can see that the trajectory is maintained. We have important donor countries that have not yet pledged. So as I'm speaking to you, I'm remain very, very confident. When I compare the level of the pledge we have now to the absolute level of pledge we had 3 years ago in February 18, we are already 30% higher. In other words, in February 18, we were around 870 and 900, and now we are plus 1.1. So we are already 30% higher than. So I'm very, very, very. This has been quite a very successful replenishment, and you're giving me the opportunity to express our thanks to all our 177 member states. Over.
Thank you. The next question is for Dr. Kalibata from Thin Lei Win, who's a freelance food and climate journalist, who would like you to talk briefly about these independent dialogues and how they fit in with the action track discussions that are already ongoing.
Thank you, Joanne, and again, congratulations, President of IFAD, on the replenishments. This is something that's extremely important, especially given the recovery that we must have from COVID and the number of communities that are suffering. Now, on the question you're asking on the relationship between food systems dialogues and action tracks, the idea of having food systems dialogues is to make sure that that we do go with one of the requests the Secretary General mentioned, that we take this conversation around our food systems to people, recognizing fully well that each of us, you, I, make decisions to eat 3 times a day. And over our lifetime, these are decisions that impact our planet. These are the decisions that impact the people around us. And we're already seeing a lot of that impact. We're already seeing the impact of climate change in places that is extremely far removed from areas where people that are suffering live. So this is an opportunity for each of us to rethink and think through our role in our food systems, but also to think through what we can offer, right? Farming communities that we are talking about today, they have a role to ensure that we are reducing deforestation. They have a role to ensure that we are reforesting degraded lands and rehabilitating degraded lands. But so do we have a responsibility to them to ensure inclusivity. We all do have that responsibility. Governments do have that responsibility. Private sector does have that responsibility, that we ensure inclusivity, that we ensure fairness, that we ensure resilience of systems. So with those type of dialogues that are happening at local level, there are some solutions that are going to come up that will feed into action tracks. But similarly, action tracks are places where technical people, governments are thinking through the type of solutions that we need to impact to be able to cause the right level of transition in our food systems. And those ideas will be debated also in independent dialogues and national level dialogues, so that people can see if any of them makes sense to their environments as ideas they can take up to be able to fix some of the problems they are seeing. So it's an opportunity to really get ideas from all over the world, present them in a way that allows communities from all over the world to discuss these ideas and see if they make sense to them. The reverse is that the dialogues themselves is an opportunity to present ideas to the action tracks, so that, like we're talking about insects, for communities that might think that this is a great opportunity, they put it forward within the action tracks, and then this gets to be thought through as to whether it is an idea that can scale. So it's really the exchange of ideas and information that is really critical here, is what is going to make and define the type of solutions we find for our food systems. They are going to be both from people on the ground and from technical teams and people that have the ability to understand the technicalities of these issues we are working with.
Thank you. The next question is from Bilkis Irani from the Dhaka in Bangladesh. This is also for you, President Houngbo. Bangladesh received its highest ever remittances last year, more than $18 billion. And its inflows are projected to hit 20 billion in 2020, making it the 8th highest remittance receiving country in the world. His question is about where that remittance money is invested, and if any of this goes into agricultural or rural development, and the role IFAD plays in having that, helping that remittance money be invested in rural and agricultural development. Thank you. So you're on mute.
Thank you so much. First of all, I want to reconfirm what you said, that Bangladesh is one of the highest in terms of remittances that the diaspora send back home. And we also know that in today's world, remittances are the role they play in the survival and the development of low-income countries and or lower-income countries is quite crucial, even higher than the ODA, the official development assistance, on that, which is one. Secondly, we not only we give importance to remittances, that has translated for us running a special program on the remittances, helping to channel that through the rural community, and it could be channeled that to agriculture, but it's not limited to agriculture, because it could very well be any other what we call non-farm activities in rural communities. What at the end of the result for us is a transformation of the rural economy. It's not just the agriculture side. And secondly, what I think is important to mention, and Bangladesh is one case, but it's not limited to Bangladesh. A big portion of the remittances obviously are prima facie destined to finance the basic fundamental needs of the families back home. So the need the need for food, the need for education for the children, and health. And so it's important not to ignore that, because that's the fundamental needs. And as soon as those are being secure, we try to encourage the investment side instead of consumption, so that can be invested, and particularly invest in the rural area. Thanks.
Thank you. I would just quickly like to bring Joseph in again, and if I can just take the liberty of asking a question. So you mentioned some of the challenges that you see on the ground. Where do you think these solutions come from? You're saying there needs to be more money for investing in the training and the inputs and so on. Whose responsibility do you think that is, and where do you think practically the solutions the solutions stem from? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joan. I think the help of the rural people in the challenges that I have just highlighted needs to come from the world people, because we are all one and we are all together in this, and because we are all partakers in the food system. And therefore, if the world does not come to the help of the rural people, all of us are gonna suffer. So I think by and large, the rural people need to get help from the first world countries, the organizations like IFAD, which we are very grateful for, because the moment in my local village, where the moment IFAD came into our aid, we have seen motorbike operators and women earn something, and ourselves as group members. So we could say the world people through organizations such as IFAD and other UN organizations also, those are the best placed to help the rural people. And also not forgetting what the president said earlier, that we really need to hear from the rural people, because the challenges we are facing sometimes are not commensurate with the help that we get. Like as he stated, during COVID, we needed technological support and to digitally, because the market went digital and we had now to innovate. And with lack of some of those training and help, we wouldn't have managed. Therefore, I think the help that we need could only come from those people that I have highlighted. Thank you, Joan.
Thank you. And the next question is from Stanley Ungwe from Standard Media Group in Kenya. He's asking if there are particularly COVID-19 programs that IFAD is covering. So maybe President Houngbo, you could speak a little bit about IFAD's response to COVID-19.
Thank you so much. Very quickly, what we have done, first of all, and I mentioned that a bit earlier, is to show a degree of flexibility, of agility, so our ongoing activities can be somehow reprogrammed, so we can redeploy them to address the specific socioeconomic impact of the pandemic. It's important to keep in mind that IFAD is not a humanitarian agency, so we were not and are not spending our resources in the humanitarian response side. We are coordinated that with our colleague from the UN humanitarian segment. Secondly, what we did to complement the repurposing ongoing activity, we created the Rural Stimulus Facility, a facility that is specifically dedicated about creating whatever we can, depending on the country and the community we are serving, to stimulate the slowdown caused by the pandemic. So that resource and those resources have been used, and we have very positive reaction from our donor members. We have essentially been using that to help communities have access to seed, have access to fertilizers, and those that was, of course, if you are in your planting season. On the other hand, we also have been helping producers that find themselves with their produce without a market to be able to have access to market, etc. One dimension, so because we're talking about production or storage or quick transportation, one dimension that was important, given that everything came to stand still and people were not making resources, and you know very well that in low-income countries that we are serving, a lot of communities, they earn their daily life on a day-by-day basis. So a lot of them find themselves unable to pay back the normal payment they are making to the microfinance institutions on that. So we also need to use those resources to negotiate with some of those microfinances so we could maybe pay 3-4 months ahead to make sure that there's no impact on the communities and then regularize later. So there have been different type of, for me, from next year, when we start our new cycle, 2022, 2024, the impact from COVID will be automatically embedded in everything we plan, including the digital that Joseph was also talking about. Over.
Thank you. We have 3 minutes left. And Asha, I see that your hand is up. I'm not sure if that was a new question or the one that you had asked before. If that is still a question, I see you've taken your hand down. I'll then quickly ask one very last question, and please answer briefly before we close. It is again from Bilkis Irani from Bangladesh. What is IFAD doing to promote digital technology solutions for agriculture in countries where mobile technology has low levels of penetration? That's a big question to answer in 1 minute, President Houngbo.
Yeah. Quickly, we have to work on multi layers, and again working with the government. And right now, what we're doing, we're also working with Michael Kramer, that some of you will know, the economist, Nobel Prize, Nobel Prize laureate, on providing some digital solution that remain cheap and that is accessible by the rural community. Is the accessibility to data, accessibility sometimes to markets, where we would like to go depending on the country, for our rural community to be able to have access to prediction for the weather conditions, to be able to know what are the quantity of the water needed, so we can protect the environment as well. There are a lot I can say that, but I know time is running over.
Thank you. You have indeed run out of time, but thank you to all of you for participating. Just before we close, I'd like to highlight a few things coming up today at the Governing Council meeting, which will be from 1 p.m. CET. In the first session on bridging the investment gap in rural development, Dr. Agnes Kalibata will be a keynote speaker, along with Marietta Jager, Deputy Director General for International Partnerships from the European Commission, and Sabrina Elba, IFAD's Goodwill Ambassador. Joseph will then also join some other rural producers from Egypt, Nigeria, Peru, and the Solomon Islands, who will share their experiences. And there'll also be some more news about the replenishment and pledges received for IFAD's work over the next 3 years. So if you have any queries, please contact IFAD Newsroom at ifad.org. And thank you all for coming and participating today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.